Kevin call me?
Oh, it's coming.
It's 5 o'clock. We are now live.
Yeah, so. We gotta just go ahead and start it anyway.
And you unmuted.
Yep.
Yes.
Call to order the Finance and Personnel meeting of Tuesday, August 20th. Roll call, please. Sam.
Amy Johnson.
Here.
Lee Dashlet.
Here.
Casey Boer.
Here.
Wayne Schmidt.
Here.
Midge Swedberg.
Here.
Scott Meverden.
Here.
John Ortlieb.
Here.
And Kevin Schmidt should be here shortly.
Could you confirm the meeting in compliance with open meetings law?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. We're looking for an approval of or changes to the order of the agenda
Motion to approve.
by Casey,
Second.
second by Scott. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everyone had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from July 16th. Any discussion or a motion to approve
So,
by Wayne,
Second.
by Nick? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And then if you all look at the bills,
And Matt?
Yes.
What's P and R? P and R. Guy Hofstra, it says.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, okay. Thanks. I'll read. And I had asked Matt a question this morning about the bills for the chips. With the security, we are being reimbursed through our fee that we're charging. That's good to hear.
That is correct.
And we are going to be getting 2 more, correct?
Yes.
2 more tournaments that we were planning on. So I don't have any other questions.
anything else? Not be looking for a motion to approve. By John. Second by Lee. Roll call, please.
Meverden.
Yes.
Dashlet.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Wayne Schmidt.
Yes.
Boer.
Yes.
Ortlieb.
Yes.
Swedberg.
Yes.
Conference attendance. You want to explain to Matt, since I know you're very much.
Sure, this is the annual League of Wisconsin Municipalities, League of Wisconsin Municipalities, I'm sorry. This would approve Alderman Dashlet, Alderman Wayne Schmidt, and the mayor to attend this conference as well, 10/23 through 10/25, down in Middleton, just outside of Madison.
There's something new that you can learn.
Perhaps you should just approve one and make them fight it
Go ahead, I don't care.
out. Yeah.
Makes no difference to me.
What's the total cost?
For the hotels, well, I have to talk because I have them booked. And I talked with Wayne after the meeting this morning. Just a rough number. About $1,800.
That's all.
That'd be up front. Yes.
Is that what you're thinking?
No, that'd be another $600.
Any questions? Now, a motion to approve.
Motion to approve as presented.
Scott? Second? Second by Nick. Roll call, please.
Wayne Schmidt,
Yeah.
Casey Boer,
Yes.
Swedberg,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Ortlieb,
Yes.
Dashlet, Meverden.
Yes.
Anybody in the audience for public comment? Nick?
How's everybody? Jake Maring, 619 Buchanan. I want to just suggest a very small elephant in the room. It has been about 6 years since our August body has had a pay raise of any sort. I know it's difficult for them to even suggest it themselves. I would like to suggest that you, as a group, consider giving yourself just a little bit more money for your fine efforts. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. Anybody else for public comment? One last time. Seeing none. I don't see any old business. We move on to new business. A is tax increment district number 3 in finance.
Yep. Okay, there's a memo in your packet that describes this, but I will go through it for you. This is in regards to tax increment district number 3, which is the new condos on the south end of town, kind of down in that hole. So in 2019, the city took out a loan for just over $1 million to create that, to do any type of infrastructure work that was needed there. The loan was taken out for a 5-year term at 3.57%. That is at Bank of Luxembourg right now. And it is coming due now here on October 21st. So the payment due at that time is $854,000. The intention all along was to refinance it at that point, which is what we are here to do. In addition to that $854,000, there is going to be new money added to it. It's approximately $560,000 that is due to a resolution that this council passed last year in July to reimburse ourselves for the utility improvements that were made in TID 3. That's all the work that was done last year. So grand total for the new borrowing is $1,413,467. It is being split into 2 loans because we can do some of it at tax exempt and then a smaller portion at taxable, which gives you 2 separate interest rates. It's going back to Bank of Luxembourg. We did check with Nicolay as well, but Bank of Luxembourg had better rates for us. So The taxable loan will be at $284,843. That amount cannot be financed as tax exempt because that's the remainder of the developer incentives that we paid out to, I believe it was Kleinert at the time. The remainder, the $1,128,624, that will all be tax exempt at a slightly less interest rate. That loan will then again be due for refinance again in 5 years, at which point I think we would go out to the bond market for the remaining 10 years on that. And I think the only other thing to note is that this TID needs to close by 2046. With this new financing in there, we would still be closing it likely 3 years ahead of schedule in 2043. Questions?
What are the rates?
What are the rates? The rates are higher than we had before, which is to be expected.
552 and 699. At what point are we better off paying that lower dollar amount versus keeping our money in the bank?
What do we need?
We're collecting interest on what we have capital.
Yep.
What is that threshold?
We're collecting interest right now at 5.3% on the majority of the money that we have in the bank. I don't know that I would suggest paying down this type of loan because it's a tax increment district loan. It's paid by the revenues of the TID. So
Tax exempt and taxable one?
yes, yep. So the TID does not have the money to pay this right now. It's in the hole.
But if we paid it down, we'd be using tax dollars to pay it down.
Yeah, so 2043, what I have in here as the date, that's the point where the TID comes even and doesn't owe anybody any money and it's not in the hole.
No questions or conversation?
Yeah, we only checked our local banks that we work with. Our financial advisor suggested not going out to the bond market at this point because it would cost us how much money just to have the legal done on that. So just the 2 local banks is what we checked with.
Again, this is just a memo. We don't need any action. Do we need action?
I guess just a recommendation to council to go forward with it. We would then have final approval and resolutions at the September council meeting.
Move for the conversation. Make a motion to move it to council.
Motion by Scott, second by John.
Second by John.
I believe.
They kind of.
Sorry, I didn't.
It was pretty-
Okay.
So the motion is to refinance the existing debts for TID number 3 into 2 loans, including new money to reimburse TID number 3 expenditures. To move it to council. Ortlieb.
Yes.
Kevin Schmidt.
Yes.
Swedberg. Boer.
Yes.
Dashlet.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Wayne Schmidt.
Yes.
Meverden.
Yes.
And B would be the capital improvement plan and financing capital projects.
So, yes, so everybody has a draft capital improvement plan, I believe, in front of them. Jamie is going to walk everybody kind of through this, starting with the top. But for Public Works and the Fire Department, we're gonna push those off to the end. But in between every category that you see, we will let the council answer every question or any question. So we're not taking any questions at the end. All right? We'll take all the questions at the end as well, but we'll take them kind of category by category, so we're not trying to flip back and forth through the pages, if that makes sense. With that being said, I'll turn it over to you, Jamie.
Okay, so new document for you this year, capital improvement plan. You've always had one for the past several years, but it has been a sheet of paper that went this way and it was 1 year per document essentially. So it was probably 25 pages. Here I have it all condensed down into one document so that you can see all 5 years on the same sheet of paper. So in just to like we will go section by section, but just to recap kind of what you're looking at, if you look at the administration municipal building section, the first section on the page, what is there under building improvement and equipment is kind of the proposed projects that are slated in the next 5 years. What is in that gray highlighted section below are the funding sources. So how we intend to pay for the projects that are listed immediately above. It's capital improvement plan. That does not mean that everything on the document is being capital borrowed for. So we will explain kind of as we go what these funding sources mean and where the money comes from. So just, I guess, keep that in mind that not everything on here we are asking to borrow money to pay for.
We're really only concerned about 45.
I would say like we want to have a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
The 5-year plan, we've kind of gone through here to even eliminate maybe some things that were more wish list items in the past. So it's pretty narrowed down. I would not say you're only concerned with 2025 for the budget for next year. It's going to be 2025 things, but we are more concerned with 2025, 2026, and 2027 because when we get later in the discussion, we need to talk about what we are going to borrow for future projects, and that will be to pay for the next 3 years worth of projects. Okay.
So you're locking whatever they vote on today
Mhm.
for 27 is locked in for 27.
I
Or
mean,
will
this
it be-
this plan can be amended, but it is a pretty good
That's the
indication of what we
But-
plan to happen in the next
but
3
if
years.
it doesn't get amended, you have permission to do whatever they,
Mhm.
3 years.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
But it still has to come before the council before you decide to do X.
Right.
Yep, it,
Comprehensive plan. Each expense has to be approved.
Yeah, we would not go and just buy all of these things and say, okay, we spent it. No. Okay, so we will go through this line by line. On the back page of it, I do have a comprehensive summary of what the funding sources are. So we will get to that, but I guess I'll just start right at the top. Administration municipal building, that is really what is going on inside this building here. There are 2 building improvement items listed that is taking place first in 2027. Chairs for in this room and then carpeting in this council chambers. There's also computer equipment listed probably for 2028. We don't intend to replace all those computers at the same time if they're not needed. But that money, like at some point, they're going to need to be replaced. So that's just kind of where we have them slated in. The funding sources for this would be City Hall, equipment reserve and replacement funds. So anywhere you see equipment reserve and replacement funds listed, or the ER and R, that is money that we have set aside in our Fund 400, which is essentially a savings account for future equipment needs. So there is money set aside in there for those projects. We probably have enough to cover it already, but we're not going to pre-buy anything. So currently, as of the end of June, we have almost $44,000 in the City Hall Equipment Reserve and Replacement Fund. Any questions on that category or the projects listed in there?
We have nothing in here for any mechanical systems. And we've talked about it several times.
Just in the budget. We have money in the budget, but nothing in the capital.
Sooner or later, we're gonna have to get to a discussion of whether or not we're gonna stick to everybody knows the HVAC mechanical systems in this building is antiquated and it's going to be, it's not a $50,000 demo. So, in my opinion, I think that that's something that we should be looking at within the 5-year plan for, under this category of department.
How much would you like to look at?
Wasn't it like $1 million at one time?
Last number I got was 1.3 million to replace the heating and cooling system in City Hall.
I don't agree with it and I don't like it, but it's a real number that we,
From 2 different contractors, it was about $100,000 apart.
the need's not going to go away.
I don't disagree.
Whether, again, being this is a comprehensive plan, it's something that we should have visibility to.
Don't, is that a number that we'd like to use?
I mean, if those are the numbers that we have, I don't want to speak on behalf of the rest of the council, but yeah, if those are realistic numbers,
When are they using?
1.3.
I'm gonna put it in.
Well, in 2025. I mean, it's going to be a placeholder in there, but
See, that's one of those things that could happen tomorrow, could happen 5 years from now, but you've got a plan. You're planning for a lot of these other things. And I read through this, so I agree with Scott. I mean, it's gotta go in someplace.
Okay, so we have that amendment noted. That obviously would not come out of our $44,000 because there's not enough money there. So that would have to be a general obligation debt item. I can't make that go to that though. Okay. Anything else that anyone feels should be in that category? All right, then we'll move on to cable. There were a couple other items in here. I don't have the old plan with me. But the item that remains in there is microphones in this room for these meetings. That too would come out of the equipment reserve and replacement funds. We do have that amount of money saved up so far.
And that's coming from what we did each year.
It's just coming from the budget.
Just like budget.
Yeah.
I'm just looking back.
I mean, there are revenues in the general fund budget that come from,
How much do we get from cable? For the franchise?
uh,
30,000.
yeah, there's two different revenues that come in that are sort of related to cable and they amounted between 28 and 30,000.
So that money gets used to operate. Yeah. So if you ever get to the point where the franchise fee doesn't cover your operations,
Mhm.
then you have to take a look at whether or not it's feasible to continue.
Correct.
Maybe have a meeting in a short time period discussing with people.
Anything else in cable related to capital? No. Okay. Cemetery. The only thing listed in here right now is to replace some roads. Casey's kind of got a plan there for that. This is a different funding source. We have a CD trust fund sort of set up. Perpetual care, that's the only thing that the money can be used for. So we've got $55,000 allocated in this budget. That's about how much money is in that CD. So it probably burn up the entire balance of that and we would not have that money anymore.
Casey, has there been any talk about expansion? I don't know how many lots you have built.
I talked with Jackie a couple of weeks ago, and there's kind of a drawing there. At some point, we have to decide where back to the west of where we want to put roads in there and how we want to lay them out. And there was kind of a plan, but there was not everything as far as I know was ever set in stone. Obviously, there's only probably a handful of plots. He said, left. A lot of single, a couple singles, not much for a double plots.
This is just to address the existing. Should we have something in there for 28, 29?
At some point, we would have to, I know there was a survey done at one time, I think, and I think we may have to do again just to kind of get where, once you figure where the roads are, to plot everything out. Jackie didn't have a whole lot of information on it, and I asked her what if she was doing this.
I assume, and maybe I'm not a road guy, but it's gonna cost more than,
It costs more to put it
more to
in.
put it in a new one than it is to replace the existing one that, whether it's 100 and, 2 times, 4 times, was. Maybe something like that. Especially if there's not that many, yeah.
Even if you only did, and you don't have to even put the roads on the whole thing, you could get it just on the first section, and you can, that gets you a long, quite a long time down.
Maybe something like that.
Placeholder for
29, so it's on the.
How long of a road is the new road and how much does this 55,000 cover?
So this 55,000 would cover about half the roads in the center, current roads, but basically ledge them and overlay them.
Is that the soup one?
No, this would be blacktop. So seal coat was about 3 times the 6 inch.
And how long is the road would you probably for the pencil?
I think, I think it must be 3 to, you'd have one probably running north and south, and probably 3 running east and west at a time altogether.
So it is a big number.
Yeah.
Yeah. 800 feet.
Is that something that
Look at put it in ourselves.
You have an educated guess on the number?
Yeah, after running that, I mean, it'd be a tough number though.
Do you want to find a dollar value for
Yeah,
this?
we're gonna have to
Okay,
relook at it.
So we're-
Something I didn't.
okay, we'll put it out in 2028
Yeah,
though.
we'll just throw a ballpark number out.
I wouldn't. I mean, I'd look at adding a number probably for 28.
I was just gonna say,
You know, to build it and probably blacktop it in 29 or something like that.
I don't know what the number's gonna be. but
Right, no, I just didn't know if you.
I got it. Right, so far all we've added is the HVAC.
Okay, then we're gonna skip fire for now. We will then look at Parks and Rec. So there are a variety of things here, different funding sources as well. So first thing listed there is Welcome to Algoma signs. That budget number of $71,370 is for 3 signs, correct, Casey? Okay. We are anticipating that we may be able to get one of those paid for by donations. The other 2 potentially would have to come out of general obligation debt. There is a new lawnmower listed there that we are thinking the lawnmower and the Peterson Park concrete listed there could come out of the operating budget next year. So essentially we would have a line item in the general fund budget under Parks and Rec that just says move to 450 for capital projects. So that would not come out of any borrowing or anything like that. And then there's a truck replacement listed 3 years out there, and that would be paid for with the equipment reserve and replacement funds. Currently, Parks and Rec has almost $40,000 in that equipment reserve and replacement account.
when you're talking those signs, are you talking the chamber giving money or CID? What are you talking?
I talked to Jan from CIVA. She was going to bring it up at one of the meetings coming up. And she said, I would like to think that they would pay for a whole sign, but she can't speak for the committee, so she's going to bring it forward.
So has the chamber been addressed on
I
that?
haven't asked her.
And if we were able to find another donor to pay for another sign, these funding sources are not locked in stone. They can change.
Are all our signs that bad that they can do with
Yeah.
Pretty tough shit.
All the wood is in tough shape. Sean Olson's actually been spending his own time and material and money kind of tying them together to patch them up. And then, these ones would all be plastic. In theory, they last. Part of the problem is they all have solar beds in them, so there's dirt and then you just get so moisture that's so tough.
You have to do them all at the same time.
So you get a 8% price break if you order more than one, and I would just assume the price would just go up. You wouldn't have to.
Anybody else?
If we could break that up, but
And they're still standing, right? And prices are always going to go up, but so does our income. and everything else, so. I don't know if that's a good reason to order everything right now.
Well, it depends what kind of sign we're gonna do, right? Did you give any
They have a
indication?
whole design of it made up already.
Is it a metal sign? Is it a brick?
Plastic, mostly plastic. Plastic and then a brick.
We'll leave it in there and we'll see what happens. It's like any of these other things, we gotta see when we get the funding.
It can get pushed down.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's in here, doesn't mean that it's going to happen spring of 2025.
Hopefully somebody donates these might happen.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else in Parks and Rec? Okay, we will move on to the police department. Couple things listed there. There's some computers and docking stations for the squad cars that is listed as being paid for with equipment reserve and replacement funds. The other thing that will be basically a repetitive purchase every 2 years is a replacement squad car. We have estimated costs in there for 26 and 28. The issue we run into there is that we are not saving enough money to pay for these squad cars as we buy them. So I have projected that we are going to purchase our next squad car in 2026 for maybe $71,000 and pay for it with general obligation debt, which means we're going to drive the squad car for 6 years and pay for it for 20. So something we need to discuss in a little bit more detail, but we'll talk about that kind of when I get through the end of this.
Can we go back to leasing on those?
Yeah, we used to lease them for 5 years and then we pay down after that. A lot of your equipment you can transfer over too. You're not buying new cages if you stick with your angles. So you're
Yeah,
buying
the lease
everything.
is a potential option. We did do that. I recall in the past. So we can switch that. Like I could add a line in here
I don't
for.
want to general obligation bonds for those types
I don't
of
want
things,
to either.
Because it's 20 years, and like you said, the last 6 none is done.
We
And we're
agree.
still paying for them. That's
Yeah.
not good. That's just no good.
are the computers shot, is that why we're
There's-
using all three?
So the tough books would be, that's where the 18,000, that would be looking to replace the tough books that are coming to the end of their life cycle. That's the computers they use in the squad
But
cars.
the docking stations are different, so they're not.
Docking,
Yeah, they changed the-
changing the style of it.
Usually when you get a squad car, you get on the computer. That's just kind of a rotation. That's what we do. The squad car and the documentation, the computer. Since they changed the style now.
Our computers right now are not compatible with like the Windows 11. And with Windows 10 is going to stop servicing it in October of next year.
And you have 18,000 in your equipment replacement fund now.
There's currently about 45,000.
Maybe we stick in there annual roughly.
That's. I'm going to get to what we put in all of these
Yeah.
roughly later, but what we put in there lately, $3,000 every year.
So
Which-
that's a bigger discussion. I think I
Yeah.
understand. For the sake of time, getting through this department.
Right.
Lease versus own, putting more money away so we can actually pay for stuff and not drag it out 20 years. What do you want to do? Do you want to leave them in there as is?
That's what I did. I made a note on here that, like for those squads, we could potentially do some sort of lease. We just look into that a little bit closer when the time comes to purchase them.
What are the Durangos, like 44,000 or something?
It was 45.
45 is, I think, yeah. what we
Just for the
paid
squad
last-
itself.
Just for the vehicle. Now, we had a bigger bill at Belco because we had, obviously, you couldn't take stuff out of a Charger and put it into a Durango. But now the stuff that's updated in the Durango should be able to go into the next Durango, where there's still some monies to Belco for making that transfer. But as far as buying light bars and things like that, you should be able to get them out of, 2 squad cars before you have that bigger purchase.
Till they change the body style.
Or they change the body style. Mhm.
So they-
But like the cage would come out of this Durango going to the next new one. Yeah. It's still in the Ford. Everything is still in the Ford. And
The stuff I hauled down there.
But you're all still England and you found out it was 400 instead of
If you got something ready.
Yeah, so it actually chased our tail around with Belco to try to figure out what we were gonna do with that and ended up selling it, I think. Belco found a,
No,
back?
it went, they took it back, but it was, that's what it was.
we had to
We
pay
had
a
to pay
restocking fee.
a restocking fee and shipping. But it still takes like 2 years to get a vehicle if you order it.
No, that's turned around
Okay.
a little bit, yeah, there's not such a time, I wouldn't say that we have to order a squad car next year so we can get it in 26. I think into 26, we could have the conversation and, probably get it. Well, our last one we ordered, what did we get? 6 months, 7 months? So when we ordered it, I think we took delivery, it was even less than
Yeah,
that.
because we were.
I'm saying physically when we got
Oh,
it, but
yeah.
it was at Belco for probably faster than Belco thought.
I have a lease question, because Kevin referenced we used to lease for 5 years, and we're on a 2-year. I never leased a vehicle. Can we set up a 2-year lease?
No, we're in a 5-year.
Or 5, it's just everything.
We're- Our squad cars are on a 5-year rotation.
Okay.
Because they're 2 years apart.
Thank you.
Okay. We're gonna skip Public Works for now. Hop over to Marina. There is a golf cart in here. I understand that was discussed a little bit at Public Works this morning. That doesn't really change too much here. That is something we intend to pay for out of the operating budget anyways. The Marina Fund is doing just fine right now because the cruises are coming in and bumping up the revenues there. So we are anticipating paying for both a golf cart, whether it's this year or next year, and some railing down at the marina. And then there's approximately $4,000 that we think we can get a donation from Viking for the railing. That would be a portion that they use where the railing would go. Okay.
What's the golf cart for? Usually every day for garbage and calls and stuff back and forth with the station. Basically, a lot of it.
It replaces the existing one, right? That's,
Oh, we
Shot?
have one?
Yeah.
I didn't know. Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know if we had like a gator or something.
We currently have a golf cart down there.
Well, now, well, I was
Pretty-
in
pretty
there.
just kidding.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, I guess. I see that makes no players out, I have to dust their ears.
Good exercise.
You can do whatever you want. Say anything else. Okay.
All right. Nothing else to add there. We can move on to rescue. Purchases there in the next 3 years, nothing in 2025. 2026, we'd be looking at replacing the Lucas devices. And then that should say replacements, not placements. And then the cots in 2027 and an ambulance in 2027. We should have no problem funding these. We currently have about $132,000 in equipment reserve and replacement. And then there's a large amount of money that goes into those every year, into that equipment reserve and replacement every year. And we get some of that money from the townships as well. So I think it's over 60,000 a year that's going into reserves for the rescue. So I don't anticipate any issues funding those.
One question I have is, I think, Gus, after we had talked about this Lucas device replacement in 2026, was that something that Rory come back and talk about maybe doing that as well at the same time as the ambulance?
Well, he thought because they're coming to their end of life, so it's tough to get any kind of maintenance done on them. So that would be continuing to swap out.
Okay.
So there was
Except for one or for two?
two.
For the Lucas device, we had two. Yeah. Okay, then wastewater treatment facility, Matt can probably fill in quite a bit here. Variety of projects listed there. This would all be either paid for with sewer revenue, so kind of fund balance in the sewer fund, or revenue debt, which would be paid for via sewer user fees as well. Anything to add?
I think the only thing, so that's for sure is per our contract that we have with Veolia, miscellaneous capital pumps, motors, that $82,000, that is actually a placeholder as part of their contract. So that, we don't pay that directly to them. When they buy or fix a pump, a motor, or any capital that would stay at the plant, it physically comes out of this $82,000. Okay? Everything else from that $82,000 above there would be our third phase of going out to bid to look at that capital work that would happen inside the facility, the wastewater facility.
Is that an annual placeholder?
Every other, the 82,000
Yeah.
is an annual placeholder that goes up by 3%, I believe, every year as part of our contract.
So we don't have that listed in there for non-25? Would it not be in there as a ledger line item?
It should be in there, and I apologize for that, Scott.
That
That's
carries
a
over,
good
that
catch.
82?
Yes, that should carry
Being
over
every
every year.
Okay,
Okay.
just that one
Yes.
item,
No,
But it was
it's a good catch. Yes, that
just the
miscellaneous
82,000.
capital. Yes, and then there's a percentage. I think it's 3%. That
increase
goes up
year over
every
year,
year.
whatever it may be.
So every year, and then we'll have to look up what the increase is.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's written right in our contract with Veolia.
And whatever that's just a placeholder.
The 82,000.
And if it's not used, does that roll over?
We actually get it. They don't use it, so yes,
We're able to roll it over.
correct. So if let's just say they use 75,000 of it, they physically give us that bill, we pay for it in return. And then the like major projects, we're just finished on 2. So we started that project and made our last payment, I think, this year. So now we would go to bid for the second project or third project, and then we would break that up over 2 payments with them. So we would pay for half of that this year and then half of it in 2025. I'm sorry, 2025 we would do it, and then 2026 we would pay for the second half of it. Does anybody else have questions on that, on the wastewater?
Like you have for 55,000, you have the final clarifier number 1 change replacement, and then down farther you have final clarifier number 2 increase for the wire. Why replacing one and replacing the other?
Actually, the final clarifier number 1 is supposed to be the aeration. It's not, doesn't all fit in there, but it's all supposed to be aeration replacement inside the tank.
Okay.
And then the following year, the number 2 would get done. Any other questions?
And those, like those phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, that's actually in those finance.
Yes.
They pay for it and we pay for
Yeah.
do you want to get into public works and fire now, or do I want to talk about like
Let's-
funding up in the equipment reserve
Yeah.
replacement?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll bounce back to fire and public works shortly. You heard me reference equipment reserve and replacement funds like over and over and over. It's good, I guess, that we have the process set up that we're saving money. I don't think we're saving enough in the majority of these funds to cover the projects the way we would like to be able to. And I will go through what I think currently as the budget would possibly stand for 2025, how much we would be putting aside. So for 20, and this is mirroring what we've been putting aside in past years. So administration, about $4,000 is going to equipment reserve and replacements. No, I don't have it written anywhere. Cable's putting aside about 2,000. Fire, that one's a little variable because your contract's changed, and I'm thinking maybe 30,000 next year. Parks and Rec is about 4,000. Police is about 3,000. Public Works is about 8. And then rescue's a little bit of a different situation where they're putting aside pretty much enough to cover everything they're going to need to buy.
What about the police?
3,000. So, ideally, if we can find enough money in the budget to like put more money aside, I think that's what I would prefer to do. I think in administration, we're probably doing fine. Cable, like we're not really spending the money there that too often that needs to be replacing things. Everything else I think is maybe being underdone, especially the police department, like we talked about. $3,000 there is really getting you nothing.
That's not enough, it's not enough.
No, not at all. So I guess
So
if we
what would
can,
you really recommend if it's not 3,000? What is,
For what, the police?
I mean, 25,000 a year. I don't know.
I was gonna say you'd be looking at roughly 12,000 per vehicle if it's a 5-year lifespan.
Yeah.
With an average cost of
I mean, I'd like to put 20,000 a year
20,000 a year, every year ideally in that.
or more.
you know, we should look at it.
So,
Mhm.
but then we have to find the
We have to find the money to
$20,000
do
in the
it.
budget, okay?
I understand.
So I know it's not a popular conversation, but here's a conversation that I guess I'm gonna bring up is we could take $20,000 from the cable and use that to pay down or pay into some of these placeholders, okay? But taking that $20,000 would directly cut out our cable committee. We would do the same thing we're doing tonight and live stream on YouTube, everything. There wouldn't be any more cable channel here in the city of Algoma. Currently, right now, we tape our meetings here. We put on the church services. The school district, I want to say prior to even me being here, has gotten rid of their cable channel because of the expense of it. And they take all of their meetings and they bring them over here and we put them on the air for them. It would eliminate the cable committee or eliminate the cable department, I should say, not the committee. The committee would go along with it. But that would give us that $20,000 to put those placeholders that we would not be using borrowed money for replacement of squad cars or replacement of some of these other things.
Well, that's one of them.
That is one idea where that monies could come from.
So,
Or we could take out one of the sewer projects and move that to a different year.
You can't, that's
Sewer
sewer's a
projects
completely
don't,
different fund.
that's not general fund. That's its own fund because it's paid on user fees.
So everything on this document, like the first 2 pages are all general fund items. Starting with Marina. So Marina, rescue and wastewater are all their own funds, so you can't really touch them. Their revenues support their expenses, or that's how they're supposed to work at least. Everything else is general fund. So those can kind of mesh a little bit, but you can't really use sewer and put it in the general fund.
but you gotta have a good rotation of street replacement. You can't just cut the streets. So
No, I didn't say don't not to use it.
Well, we can't
You
keep
put one
pushing,
off.
we can't
Yeah,
keep pushing
yeah.
off, because he's got a good set of streets here. He's doing a whole section of Sunset. Why would you want to do little bits at a time? If he's gonna do it, let's do the whole thing like he's got listed, instead of pushing back.
Can we eliminate one squad car?
We can go down to 2.
Well, we got 3 in his, right? We got 4 right now.
Right now we have 5 because we didn't have a public auction,
You have a
but
problem,
yeah.
but you got 4 that you're operating with. Can we operate with 3?
Just the one right now it's just
Really just sitting
in
there.
case something happens with one of the other ones.
Well, I guess that's a question, because if you're looking at trying to save some money, that's the way to do it. I'm just asking a question.
Right.
Can't get along without it, then, you know.
Yeah, the 4th squad car, if we go all the way back when we bought the last squad car, the Ford was gonna stay here, but it was never gonna be replaced. We were gonna continue to replace 3 of them, but when the Ford end of life, or we had to bring it in and it was gonna cost us more than what it was worth, it was gonna go on the public auction as well. You know, it wouldn't be part of the rotation.
Rotation roll by a year then? You got rid of the car? What are we saying?
Well, you're still replacing a squad car because you're keeping them for 5 years, right? So you're on a 15-year rotation then instead of a 20-year rotation.
can't go to a 6-year rotation. We looked at that and it's just too hard on the squads.
See, but then it doesn't sound like you're saying you're gonna get rid of the squad car. What am I missing?
You are, if you're budgeting for it.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are.
Budgeted for that.
If we're budgeting the money to pay for it every year,
Yeah.
we're not replacing 4 of them and keeping 4 of them maintained. We're only maintaining and keeping 3.
If you, I mean, it's gonna be roughly 12,000 a year per vehicle to budget replacement. Every 5 years.
So your 20,000 from the cable department is that's a start, and then with Donnie, we can do it to this, but it's a drop in the bucket. When you've got 3 police vehicles, the public works department, the pickup trucks, all the equipment, parts and that, all of those need to be.
Mhm.
I think that's what you're alluding to.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, my main concern at this point is the police department. Just because we know, like, you can make a public works truck last, I don't know, what, a little bit longer than a
We
squad
don't
car
have to go on
probably.
a 5-year rotation on public works trucks like you do on a squad car. If we need to get 12 years out of a public works truck,
Mhm.
it can be done.
The last one's almost 20.
And some of them, yes.
Yeah, my intention with bringing up that possible idea with cable department would be that if you decide to go down that road at all, the cable department's expenditure budget is approximately $25,000. I wouldn't recommend doing that without like kind of a stipulation that that money is then being used to put aside for equipment reserve and replacement. I wouldn't want to do it if you're just going to try and spend that money on something else.
But then if we get rid of the cable, we still got somebody that has to film everything and then put it on YouTube.
We're doing it right now.
We're
All
doing
those
it right now.
expenses don't go away.
No,
Yeah, we're doing it right now.
Right now.
And no
There's
one's
no
here.
expense.
It's just click the button and.
Yep, it's up on the
We're
computer right here. This thing
Live
is
on
doing it.
YouTube right now.
The only consideration, and it makes sense as far as cost savings go, but there's a demographic that gets brought up a lot about who utilizes that resource, right? And, you know, I understand the give and take, and if in the end, that's what we need to do to make the whole process work better, it makes sense. But eliminating the television, anytime there's a complaint that not everybody has the internet and not everybody has access to that kind of stuff, those people who rely on that, who utilize that service for as long as they have, will no longer have access to it. And again, if that's the decision that has to be made, that gets made. But there are potential fallout or potential things to consider as far as who it's going to impact, as far as the information that's getting out there, and not just city information, but general information, community information.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we eliminate it, we're also not getting our franchise fee.
We would
We
still
get our franchise fee regardless.
Regardless,
That franchise fee is continuing to go down.
it's based on the number of customers, right?
It's based on the users.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Jamie.
So I did a little bit of research on this today because I thought that question would come up. And I wasn't fully aware of what the franchise fee was for either, thinking maybe it's because we're running this cable channel and it's not at all. The franchise fee is because the cable companies are using public property for their cable lines.
Okay.
So we get 2%, I believe, on the franchise fees. That used to be 3%, and then the state dropped it down 1%. I'm not really sure why, because they then give us a video service provider, like basically a shared revenue, to make up the difference. So,
And
but
that's based off of the amount of residents that have charter cable.
the franchise fee, yes, the video service provider fee is like $8,700 and some odd dollars, and it just stays stagnant.
Continue to fall.
Yeah. It goes down. It doesn't go down a lot, but I think right now we're somewhere grand total between those two things, probably between $28,000 and $30,000 a year.
We get 30 for that, and we budget 25.
Mhm.
We have 55,000.
No, those are revenues.
So we have
That's coming
55,000 we could use for something
No,
else.
we have 25,000 we can use.
The cable has about 30 coming in and approximately 20 going back out into the cable.
In
But I
just
don't think you need to
stipends.
look at it though, really, as if it's cable revenue. It's just city revenue.
It's revenue. The answer to Wayne's question is, if the cable department goes away, that revenue stream continues to come in.
Right.
But it will continue.
It just gets reallocated to something else.
Because based on the number of customers.
how many people that are, certain age demographic and cases are moving to don't have cable anymore and they just stream everything. Continue their lives with that.
If you get a fee for people who, is it only the ones that have the cable, or if they have connection, internet, or cable? Because if the lines are public and that's what we get.
I believe it's cable, specifically a cable subscription.
Because I
But I've written down at least.
right, because we use Charter, but it's only for internet. We don't have.
Our biggest, right now, our biggest problem is you can say how many people are watching it on cable, and there is no way to know how many people are watching the first Monday of every month's meeting. We don't know, unless we would poll everybody in the city, or, I mean, maybe somebody's in a different state. If you have the right cable channel, could you watch it? I'm not sure if that's just local access.
We need to, is this a decision that we are making tonight? Whether or not we are getting the funding from here to there?
We do not have to make
Is this just conversation?
It would move that money as a placeholder in a conversation. It does not have to be earmarked tonight.
I think Casey should have that conversation with the committee. It's only fair.
Yeah.
We're not making a change without it.
No, and this,
This
the
is
topics
just
of conversation
right.
really are the capital plan
Yeah.
and then the financing stuff that we'll get into a little bit later. I just thought as a course of discussion, when we're bringing up these equipment reserve and replacement funds, that it's appropriate to mention that I don't think we're putting enough money in those. And that's where our minds went as
I
a,
think you're absolutely right, and we need to put more in.
Yeah.
And we need to that has to be like number one, and then projects come number two, whatever's left that we can do. But I'm part of the American Legion. That building down there needs some attention. I do not see anything on here for the American Legion building. It belongs to the city. And the windows are just about to fall out, and it's got some serious problems, and you need to put 100,000 here, a couple 100,000 there for 2 years, and then that'll be fixed up and probably good for the next 20 years, but it's getting pretty bad. And those are our veterans. They represent all the people who are living in debt, who died for the freedom of this country, and I don't think we can just leave them out and say, well, there are a bunch of old guys that are going to die off anyways, we won't do anything. No, we can't do that. We got a lot, that's our building. It belongs to the city, and the city needs to come up to the table and do something about that. And I don't see any money in here for that.
And there's not, and I think that's a conversation we should have, John. How much money because it's been had numerous times with the American Legion, and how much money we're going to stick into that building because of the amount of money that it needs. And we start to put all the city properties, right? Everything that we need in the city and all of our city buildings. I think we have to have the conversation about we're going to put $200,000 into the American Legion, but we're not going to put $1 into City Hall.
Well, the city hall needed it this second. The answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
And the American Legion needs it right now, so maybe so, and I understand that, but if you say, okay, that building is ours, but we have an agreement with the American Legion, what are you gonna do when it falls apart? And we can't meet there anymore.
I thought the discussion was how much space do they need? Do we even need to meet at that building? Is there somewhere else they could meet?
Well, if there is,
I don't know. Is there?
I guess, we're open to whatever suggestions are. I kind of think that building is probably better off tearing it down and building a new one, but, a new one isn't gonna be cheap either. If you got some other space that we can have as our meeting place, that we can keep our rifles in and all the other paraphernalia that they have, all the flags and everything, fine, but we need a private space too. There's a semi-private space for that. So if there's something else, we should be glad to talk about it. But they feel like they're really getting set aside is because they're old. And I would hope that would not be true.
That's never a conversation that came out of City Hall that they're getting forgotten because they're old. That's
Well, we need to have a conversation and with them as to what you can do, Matt.
And that conversation has been started, too, but we've had a couple of conversations with Mike Ray, Matt Riley, and with John Sharp.
And as far back as with CJ,
Yes.
that I've had conversations.
A lot of it went to the roof, too, when we discussed that, some years back, how much money we were gonna
It
save.
has been.
Well, the roof is never done. It's
No,
cancer,
that's
but
what
they
I
never
mean.
did.
And we put about $25,000 into the roof. Keep it.
Yeah, yeah, it's running a hole inside.
Mhm.
About 6 times a year, that's
More of it.
And maybe the new roof. And the outside. I'm serious, guys, the windows are all.
Trying to find another deal.
The last we
We
looked
gotta
at
do
it, it was about $350,000 between the roof, the windows, the siding, the heat.
You utilize the whole upstairs of the new center.
basically every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
I mean, we can have this discussion, John, and
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
more
want to
than
take
happy,
the
but
time here to do
I
all
don't
that.
think
but just
today
make
we
it
need to
aware.
add a placeholder, in that, parks line item for that building. And that, unless the council says different, they want to add
Well,
something.
maybe you start small, maybe you look at, I don't know, what's the worst thing, the windows or the roof?
Well, you want to do the roof first so that you don't do the siding and then have it leak behind the siding. So that's gotta be number one, and then two, and then the siding with the window. You can maybe do the siding and keep the windows you got for a little bit.
We did ask, or I did ask John Sharp to come up with a list of what's wrong with it and prioritize it.
So maybe once we get that list with the dollar amounts assigned to it, then maybe we can look at adding it into this capital plan. But for now, let's just take note that that's something, that's an avenue we'd like to look at exploring. And once we have more from John, because this is a working document, right? You're going to adopt it, maybe not tonight, maybe not next week, but you're going to adopt it, and then something's going to come up and we're going to go right back to like, hey, we got to shuffle the things around one more time. So maybe that's something we can shuffle in there once we have more concrete numbers.
And would you like a placeholder even if you don't put a number on it?
Yes.
Would you do that?
Until we figure out a solution.
Well, like just adding a line that says American Legion.
American Legion.
Perfect. All right, circle into the fire and public works before this.
Okay, then we'll circle back real quickly to, well, maybe not real quickly, to Public Works and Fire. Just what's on the document at this point. And everything that's on the document has either carried forward from previous capital plans or are put on here at the request of the department head. So Fire, we have a new station on here and then 2 replacement fire engines that would need to be replaced in the near future. And then Public Works, let me bounce back to Fire and just say that we do have a balance in equipment reserves and replacement for Fire of about $465,000. I didn't factor any of that into any of these larger purchases, but that money is there. Otherwise, I'm looking at borrowing for all of that. And then Public Works has a pickup truck that could be paid for with equipment reserves and replacement funds. A plow truck that in the past we used a USDA rural development loan. At that time, we were able to get partial payment of it paid via grant. It doesn't look like a grant is an option for Algoma right now, but the loan program should be. So those 2 items are paid for outside of the big borrowing that we would do. Everything listed under street reconstruction would be paid for via general obligation debt or a long-term borrowing. So just looking at those 2 real close, like real briefly, because we need to get into then a bigger discussion about just borrowing for projects and how much you want to borrow, what projects you actually want to do. Where do we want to go? Keep going.
Go ahead, Scott.
When this was originally sent, I don't know, late last week or the weekend, taking a look at it, that was one of the things I noticed that was kind of a surprise. And I know the new fire station obviously is something that several people in here fought for and we need. I was surprised to see it added to this. Is that just to be visibility for a placeholder?
So this essentially is a wish list from your department heads.
Okay.
Up to you to make adjustments as you see fit.
Last conversation, that we had, it's
Something
been
like
several
that,
months,
yeah.
but we were looking at different
Explain.
funding opportunities, kind of private investment.
Explain.
Exactly.
Why we could do
I'm
Yeah.
just curious how that
so before they.
got on here for borrowing.
Okay. I'm gonna bounce to this last page of this real quick. I kind of missed something. So this is the funding source summary of everything that you see in the previous 3 pages on this document. What we're kind of rolling into is the line listed here as general obligation debt. That's the big borrowing that we're discussing. If you look at 25, 26, and 27, the total there is about $8.4 million. What we were kind of talking about potentially is borrowing up to $7 million. We can get down to $7 million if you wipe out those 2 fire trucks, because obviously you wouldn't be doing a fire station and 2 fire trucks all within like a year or 2. So we could get down to 7 by pushing those 2 fire trucks out further, which has been done repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. That $7 million number that I just got down to does not include the HVAC system that you added in. So that changes things a little bit. Now, initially, I guess our discussion that we planned on bringing here 2 weeks ago was, do you want to borrow $3 million to do everything in this plan, like your road work, your potentially those welcome to Algoma signs, anything I've listed as general obligation debt other than the fire station? Or do you want to mix all of those things and do the fire station? And then last week, Matt and I met with Jeff Belangi, the city's financial advisor, and he told us, given the situation the city's in and how much our equalized value has grown in the last few years, that we're in a position that if we wanted to, we could do both of them. That he would feel comfortable with us borrowing $7 million at this point in time.
It does not come for free.
It does not come for free. Nope. Just
Even
looking.
at 5%, which we're over there at 5.22. On general obligation bonds, that's to do 4 million was 200,000 a year in just in debt carry. And so if you did 8 million, that would be $400,000 a year just in debt carry.
Yeah,
So
no, there's an
right off the top of your expenses are the debt carry, and then we get down. I mean, it takes away everything else. Yes, I know. That's on top of what we got. So it's another $400,000 a year
Can I
just
just
in the debt.
finish getting through?
Yeah, finish it.
Okay. I just want to explain how he came to that number and how he's like kind of feels that we're in a spot where we could do that. So in 2021 is probably when you were talking about going out for the last debt refinance. That was for the 2022 capital projects, and probably rolled into the 3 projects that are going on now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So at that point in time, the city's equalized value was $210 million. Fast forward 3 years, your equalized value has grown by $125 million. So the maximum general obligation debt that the city can take on is 5% of equalized value. So 3-4 years ago, that was a much smaller number than it is now. The legal debt capacity that the city can take as of 2024 is almost $17 million. At the end of 2024, we will have a remaining debt capacity of almost $11 million. So if we were to take another $7 million, we would be at about 72% of our debt capacity and paying down about $1 million of that every year. So we would chip away at that percentage and bring it back down fairly quickly. The worst case scenario number that our financial advisor gave us for if we were to borrow $7 million would be an impact of 89 cents per thousand on taxes. And I guess my suggestion would be like, if you want to borrow money, you need to be committing that you are going to put 100% of those payments on the tax roll. Because I know in the past, it was like in last year's budget, you could put, I think it was like $840 thousand of debt payments on the taxes, and you chose not to. And then that just impacts us going forward and keeps decreasing what we can levy.
And just because you can borrow doesn't mean we can afford to borrow. Yeah, you got capacity, just like I got a lot of capacity in my home to take a home equity loan now. It doesn't mean that I can afford to pay for that home equity loan when I take it out. Same thing is true there. And yeah, we got the capacity, but the capacity is not the ability.
We have the ability
Julie,
to
I got a
repay.
question. What do
Because
we,
taxpayers have to pay it.
what do we have in our reserve, like, to keep this city running? Do we have like a $4 million, all this money in there, or what do we have?
We, as of the end of 2023, we had a general fund balance. I think, I don't have any of that with me, but unassigned fund balance though of like, you have it 2 point what? 2.8?
So we had 2.8 million just to keep everything going.
Mhm.
Do you need that much in there? Like where you could take $1 million and put it towards the fire station and run with a 1.8 million? What
Do
what
we
the
need
logic
that much in there? We're at a healthy percentage. From what I understand, the city has never really passed much of a fund balance policy, and I would feel more comfortable that you have that sort of discussion before you just start pulling money out of there.
Correct.
And I'm also not at a position like 4 months into the job to say, yeah, pull 1 million or 1.5 million out and we'll see what happens.
We can put that towards the fire station or buy land, at least get the land on wherever we're gonna build this thing. Instead of borrowing for everything, borrow, like you said, the more we borrow, the more we got to pay back. We have 800,000, we can say, yeah, let's put that towards this project. And we have to borrow maybe 3 million. Maybe we need to cut down this fire station.
That's what I'm just-
Maybe it's
Maybe we only need 2 million.
yeah, we don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna make a comment.
Mhm.
What bothers me about this is we went to a referendum twice. And the taxpayers said they voted it down. Now it makes it look like we're trying to slide it through without giving the taxpayer a voice in this. I know I'm a proponent of the fire station. I've always been. And I don't like the idea of the way we're trying to get it accomplished. I think that's wrong.
I mean, I agree with you 100%.
Those referendums weren't whether or not we should do it, it was whether or not we should exceed the levy limit.
Well,
So like that's, I mean,
I know what you're saying.
it's a distinctly different question.
I don't
And
think
if
I don't think it was, but go ahead.
the thing that we've been doing, like the process that's been going on that predates me being here, as far as borrowing goes, has helped the city become more stable financially, has grown throughout the process. These are all need things, and we've done well with borrowing. We've done well with repaying. I don't know why we should change the course on that potentially. I mean, it is a need. It is attainable. It reflects some of the work that's been done by administration, by you all up here. The capacity, if we have the capacity, which we do, and the advisement is, well, I feel comfortable going up to here. I think it's a worthy conversation to have, and I don't think it's underhanded at all as far as getting because we're put here to make decisions.
right.
And if one of them is the fire department, or excuse me, the fire station is in need, and we have a means to do it, and it's a means that is sensible enough to do it, then our responsibility is to pursue that most sensible path.
Okay, I'll agree with your point. The other thing is that every time I turn around and see that there's a community that's getting money for a fire station, where are we?
Can I explain that?
Yeah.
So, who was the last one that you brought to me? Viroqua. So what they did, because I was super excited about that, and called their fire chief, their administrator, and one of their other people who handled the project. What they did was continually write letters to Tammy Baldwin and call her office and get money for her and get money for her. And I said, okay, well, how did you apply for this grant? And what they did was, after the money had been earmarked for them at the federal level, they were told, okay, this is how we're going to funnel the money through you, is through this, was it the USDA?
Yeah.
It was the USDA. So that's how they got that. it wasn't that they applied for this grant and they got this grant and how it was a continuous, and I'm going to use Tammy Baldwin because that's who the guy told me was Tammy Baldwin. We need this. We want this. We have to have this, whatever. We at the city got earmarked here for what? 19 million for the Pier project. Now we didn't see any of that dollars, but you can see that they're doing things with it. But that was how they got it in Viroqua was we need this, we need this, we need this. She responded back, we've earmarked this for you. I mean, it's not like a, hey, here's a letter and now you get this funding, but it was continually badgering.
We could do the same thing.
We can, but we also just got 19 million for a pier.
Well,
Doesn't make
You know,
sense for a fire station.
It doesn't, but that would be what, 24 million for the city of Algoma?
Don't hurt to try.
And we have
There is
sent
another
letters.
way. There is another way. And I know you can have a group of investors build the fire station. Have the city lease the fire station, 20-year lease, $1 buyout at the end. And that way, we're not putting out $4 million, we're putting out whatever the lease payment is over those 20 years. And yes, the guys are gonna make a little bit of money on the deal.
Where does
Because
that
we're
lease
investing the
payment
money.
come from, John?
What?
Every year there's a lease payment due. Where does that money come from?
Well, the same place that we're gonna pay the $4
Comes
million
from the
debt
tax
from.
dollars.
But so does this.
It's the same
Except that
thing.
we don't go into the
This is
debt.
actually a better, I'm not saying that this is what we need to do. This is a better option than paying a third party a lease payment every month. We're cutting out the leasing and just directly borrowing the money and building it.
And you still own it. In
And we still own it in 20 years. The leasing option, if we didn't have to be able to, I just want to go back to the 2022 referendum because we didn't have the capacity to be able to do this, right? We proposed and asked the taxpayers on a 40-year note to borrow $5.7 million. That was with a police department and a fire department, okay? That was going to be $1.57 per thousand. And the taxpayers said no, right? The voters said no. The biggest argument is we don't want to pay for a fire department for 40 years. We do not want to pay that much, right? Or we don't want the police department. That was a lot of the other conversation. The second conversation or the second referendum in 2023 was then to raise the levy to $3.7 million and go up for 30 years. That was going to cost everybody 97 cents per $1,000. All right. The margin got better, but it was still a no vote. We now have the ability, I'm not saying because you have $20,000 to use on your credit card doesn't mean you should go use it, right? But we now, and that's why this is before you today, because we do now have the ability to do it. Not saying we need to do it, not saying we should do it. We have the ability to do it.
I guess what I would like to see then, Matt, is if we did do it, how does it affect our financial statement? How does it affect the community? I mean, obviously it's a benefit to have a new fire station. But I mean, do we have to increase taxes to do that?
If we would borrow $4 million
Then we
to
have
build a fire
increase taxes,
station,
yeah.
you would increase everybody's taxes 52 cents per $1,000 of equalized value of their house. For 20 years.
House values that's starting to add up now. We don't have the $40,000 home anymore.
Right.
It's now $200,000.
If you have a $200,000 home, it would be 52 cents per $1,000 of equalized value of your home.
But you're using 4 million as your worst case. We might get by with 3.8, 3.5. We might decide a whole different building as far as do you need all that brick. You can cut down on this building with the costs. The costs are going up too. But that's a worst case, right? Is the 4 million. So maybe it's 3.9 or 3.8. But you want to have the most in is what I'm understanding.
Well, it's really hard for us to go back out to the bond market for an extra $700,000. You know, we could make it sound really good and say, well, let's borrow $3 million or let's borrow
It's
2.5.
going to be over, and then we're going to be spent.
Correct.
Better to have high.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of the grants.
Well, yeah.
Talk about a grant.
Since I've been on the council, I mean, it is common practice to go out every 3 years or whatnot and borrow $2 million to stick that into primarily roads, and projects. Where are we at in that cycle? Would it be 25 that we're looking? Are the 25 projects already figured in our last one, or are we needing to go back out?
We need to pay for the 2025 projects with this money.
This money that we would be going to the bond market for would be for the 2025 work.
Then that 3 million for sure.
And that are that's 25 through 28.
7.
25, 26, and 27. 27, we'd be having a conversation for
You just have the
2028.
750 earmarked for 2028.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I believe it was for 2022 capital projects. I don't know the date that you took the loan out.
It's 3 million.
Yeah,
Mm.
3 million.
So we're at 7 million right now. So if we borrow another 7 million, we're paying back 7 million right now, correct? And then we
About.
borrow another
Correct.
7 million.
Yeah.
And we pay $1 million off a year. inside.
About, yep.
So the repayment terms will be 20 years. Like,
20 years.
And how is that getting repaid? Is it basically?
The taxpayer dollars. Yeah, because we can levy our debt payments on top of we can put our debt payments on our levy. So whatever we add, whatever the payments come out to be for whatever amount of loan you decide to take out, you add that to the levy, and that's how we get that money to pay that.
But that's based for 25. So when we do the budget the following year,
Mhm.
those figures can go up. So that
Whatever the payment, we'll have like when you take out the debt, we'll have a payment schedule. We'll know what the payment is every year.
But then you also gotta have other things that come up. Yeah. What do you think, Mayor?
My honest opinion is we aggressively went after the project, the roads, the things like that, when they were bad, and we borrowed $3 million, obviously, that number every couple of years, and it looks great, and that's a great that we got there, we got a 1 pleasant thing, but we never paid that debt off, we go up every time. When we borrow more money, we still owe more than we owed before. It's like if you had a business, we're operating at a loss. So it doesn't give me a warm feeling to go borrow all this money. That doesn't mean we don't need to do things. I feel like we should take a 10,000 foot view and reassess our decision 6 years ago to be so aggressive and maybe slow down.
Do we have to adopt this tonight?
So
No.
we do not have to adopt this tonight. We do not have to make this decision tonight, okay? Because we are going to deal with this other debt, we need to know a number of what we want to use to start to look at going to the bond market. So, no, we don't need an answer tonight. No, you don't have to, we can discuss it. Again, I'm gonna say though, the more times we go to the bond market, we pay about $20,000 every time we go to the bond market. So,
So
So, but
the $3 million loan, how long do you amortize that? 20 years?
20.
Every 3 years, there's another loan.
So if we were to borrow the 7,000, we're basically doubling our debt. So we-
7 million.
Yeah.
I like the customer's level.
The difference is 3 million would just be for roads, 7 million includes the fire station.
Or you can do 3 million or 4 million for the fire station and not do any road projects.
I would not recommend not doing the road project, so I'll just say.
You can go to the bond market at any time, correct?
We can. I guess the benefit of doing something now in the time frame that we're at right now is that we would then close on, like if you made a decision today, we want to go and ask for however many millions of dollars, we would then be looking at closing on those loans right around the beginning of October. we would know what our payments are to put on the levy for next year. I don't really know how that works if we decide we're gonna close on a loan in December and don't know those numbers, but maybe something I have to learn, I guess.
And per million, what does it add to the levies? So if we borrow $1 million, what does it add? $2
About
million,
13
$2 million.
cents.
So per million.
Well,
About 13 cents per thousand.
Per $1,000
Okay,
of equalized
13
value.
cents.
So every $100,000, your home is worth $13.
For each million.
For each million.
Yeah, so if your home is worth, say, 200,000.
Home is worth $100,000.
See, well, there's no $100,000 home.
$200,000 would go up $26.
$26 for each million.
No,
No,
for 200,000.
For each million, though, on a $200,000 home, you're correct.
Okay, so it's. It's 20, it's 27
If we were to stay on the road,
dollars per million. So if we did 7 million, it'd be $27 times 7. Right?
If we
Times
did
eight.
$7 million, we were told
So
worst
that'd be
case
almost
scenario.
$200 for the cheaper price home from this city. That is correct.
the $200,000 home.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say to use a $200,000 home, a little less.
Okay, and let's just use 200,000, so it's $26 per million. If we take, so 4 million would be $100. 8 million would be $200. So if you say, well, we're gonna borrow this $7 million, $8 million by the time we're done, you're talking about $200 a year extra that everyone, that the cheapest homes in this town are gonna pay. And everyone who's got a higher price home is gonna pay even a lot more. That's a lot of money.
A $200,000 house, if you borrow $7 million, is going to be $178 that their taxes go up from last year to this year.
Yeah, I said $200 because I said it, let's use it, just to keep it easy.
Difference between 178 and 200 and so on. I know you use 8 million, but we're not talking.
You're still talking, it's an increase every year.
Right.
It's a lot, it's a lot, it's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but it's also not. It's not like we're just getting nothing out of it.
I'm not saying we're not getting anything out of it, I'm just seeing how much can
It's
people
value.
afford.
It's always value. Is it worth it? Is the time worth it? It's, for the fire station. It's
Well,
less
that's what we
expensive.
have to discuss is it worth it, and do we have to do it today?
Right. No, absolutely. And to your point about the 10,000 foot view, I think the 10,000 foot view is being consistent on infrastructure. So I don't think it's being aggressive.
I didn't say that.
I'm not. You're not. I am. I'm saying that by pursuing the pace that we were, it makes sense because we were catching up on things before, right?
I would say it made sense, is what my comment was. Does it make sense today? I think we should look at it. Be like if I'm a builder and I build 10 houses and 11 people are looking for them, that makes sense. If I do that for 5 years and only 50, only 5 people are looking for them, do I keep building 10 houses?
I mean, I don't know. It's a weird.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Do we still have the
Right,
need
but
for
it's-
the,
but
do
it's-
we still have the need for the road repairs that we had 6 years ago? That's my point.
Yeah.
And I didn't say I knew why you wanted to take it.
Right. No, I get that. Yeah, I mean, but from my perspective, it is a need.
Okay.
And the pace that we're going isn't aggressive. It's sensible.
And that's your.
Well, that's the Chris's opinion, yeah.
No, absolutely. And that's, I mean, isn't that why they did what we have?
Yep.
Or do we narrow down the cost of the fire station? Do we look at the whole structure? Do we look at getting the most fire station we can get for the amount of money we have? Like when I build houses, we just didn't say, okay, your house is gonna be 300,000. No, we figured it out to every 2x4 and we knew exactly what we were gonna build that house for. And then they went to the bank and they said, hey, I didn't need this much money to build a house. Now we're just guessing. Why don't we wait a little bit and narrow down a lot? Figure out we're gonna build this thing. We talked about how many different locations, which could change the cost.
Kevin, I'm gonna just interject a little bit. I don't think we're just guessing at this number. I mean, we've spent, now it's almost 4 years on this, where we've been whittling down and whittling down and whittling down.
Yeah.
We still have a building that is, gonna meet the needs of, you gotta remember today and down the road.
Oh,
You know,
and I'm
what-
pro
what
fire
do you-
station, don't get me wrong, but there's some things looking at it that you could save money with this number of bays, the exterior of the buildings. I mean, you're building steel buildings all the time with just steel on, not brick, and
We
all
don't
that
have any
could
brick.
change.
Have you seen the plans lately?
I know the plans.
There's no
yes.
brick on that building.
But maybe change the bays, that just cut the cost, get as much as you can for the money.
You know,
It's like our jail, our jail was a Taj Mahal, now we're gonna have to cut it for the money we have.
you know, when you look at this road scene, I'm just getting into that too. You know, this building that we're looking to build is gonna last, you know, I'm gonna say at a minimum of 50 years. And you're gonna repave these roads and do this sewer things 3 times, 4 times by the time we come up to replacing another fire station.
I don't agree with that.
Well, I mean,
Well, maybe not 3, 4 times, but you're sure as hell gonna have to do it again.
I'm just saying, I'm pro fire station, but I'm also pro, we gotta look at the whole city. We can't not do roads, then we're gonna look like the city of Kiwanee. Man, how are the roads in the city of Kiwanee? They're awful. They're like worse than gravel roads, and they're blacktop. We gotta keep a good road thing going.
But, you know, to the point of, as far as what it is, right, I think it's a sensible consideration, but to the chief's point, that's why there was the subcommittee. That was why the ad hoc committee, pardon me, like 2 more years of whittling down till we get to this point of having this conversation for 3.1 million, and who knows what it's at. I'm not saying like there's an immediate urgency that we have to because some cataclysmic thing's going to happen, but the reason why that ad hoc committee was set up and the reason why the ad hoc committee reconvened after the first referendum had failed was to whittle down, was to address, as Matt had said, that the reasons why people had a problem with it.
But people don't still think it's too big of a fire station when they look at the plans. People that I've talked to, holy cow, look at this municipality, they built one. We gotta try to get grants, and we're never gonna get this. We gotta work on these grants for these things. Maybe we need to postpone the 4 million and work on getting more funding.
Can you talk about the grants?
So if we drop this to 3, as an example, can we come up with the other million without?
There is a potential that we could apply for, we could maybe find a grant to apply for, something along those lines. Or maybe somebody wants to donate $1 million, I don't know. But if we want to apply for a grant, you need to have some sort of plan on place. You're not going to score any points if you're like, we want to hypothetically build a fire station, but we have no plans of moving forward unless we get this money. I think you need to have a plan of moving forward before you even apply for a grant in order to gain points to win the money.
So when I was working with FEMA grant, if you wanted to put in for a fire station, you had to have your pre-plan and approved and everything.
You probably have to have your engineering, like you've got to have a lot of stuff done to score highly to get the money.
And some proof of match.
Correct. And if we've got money borrowed to match, great. If we borrow the $4 million and find $1 million or find $2 million, then we use that extra money to fund other projects like the HVAC here or.
So either way, you're gonna spend the money, is what you're saying.
Well, I
We're
mean,
gonna spend it.
there's a lot of
Probably.
things. Let's just say we borrow $4 million and $2 million comes back to the city via grant, via donations, it comes back to the city, right? At that time, you can say, well, okay, we're gonna borrow, we can push our borrowing back, push it down the road. Instead of borrowing 3 years
Yeah,
from
we might not
today,
have to borrow for 2020.
maybe we're not gonna borrow for 5
2030.
years. Maybe because we got $1 million that we didn't expect to get, maybe we look at eating off one of these fire trucks and taking one of those off of the, capital outlay without having to borrow for that.
What the
So-
city has routinely done, and I'm not familiar with this from anywhere else I've worked, but what we've routinely done here is say, we're going to borrow $3 million and we're going to borrow that money to pay for what is in this plan. We don't borrow the money to say, we're going to pay for a fire station, we're going to pay for this street, and we're going to pay for this street, and that's it. We have just routinely said, we're going to borrow $7 million and we're going to pay for what's in here. So when this document changes, you're covered. Say, like, we could say we put $4 million in here for the fire station, we get $2 million in, say, grants or donations. We can amend this to say only $2 million of that's coming from general obligation debt. And then we can then pay for the $1.3 million in repairs here from that debt. Like, this is a working document. that our debt essentially can mold to cover.
So cost of the station still,
Good, or you want to touch that?
I talked with Bayland when this all came to tuition. Myself and the mayor talked and how we were going to kind of lay this out and look at it. One of my biggest concerns was to talk to Bayland. Where does that $4 million placeholder fall into place, right? How close are we? I talked with Bayland. He did some looking. He did some research. He feels very comfortable with our last plan design that everybody saw. The last one we went out to referendum. He feels very comfortable that we can build that fire station with $4 million.
that's not counting your infrastructure, you're not counting the road.
We are counting. There is monies in there earmarked for infrastructure, not for the road, but as far as everything, once you get on the backside of the curb is in there. Everything from the curb forward is not part of that $4 million. Yes.
And that's utilizing the property on Sunset.
And that would, that's if it got built where the last proposed site would be on Sunset and Felt. I think that's a conversation that a lot of people would like to have where that department gets built.
I think you need to decide if you want to pay
But-
for it before you even have that conversation.
We can talk about where we're gonna build the fire station, but if we're not gonna build it, we're spinning our wheels talking about where we're gonna build it. In today's market,
Yes.
$250,000, and I'm probably on the high side of that.
We'll give it to the Legion.
I was gonna say,
We would take it.
Yeah, there you go.
Then maybe that's the solution. No, I don't really get this 250,000. I mean, that's crazy. That building's gotta be worth $400,000 or $500,000 with all that garage space.
It's not ADA
Contractor,
accessible.
anybody could take that
To be honest, I'd love to sit here as a realtor and tell you, John, it's worth $4 million. But
Well, I don't think it's worth that.
I'm
either.
trying to be conservative to say I think we could get $250,000 for it. If we get more, it's a bonus. Don't get me
Well,
wrong.
Maybe we should get that building kind of assessed. Not so much that we've got to pay a lot of money for it, just to get an idea, because I think it's worth a lot more. And if it's worth 500,000, then that's 500,000 we don't have to borrow that can go towards the new fire station.
But John, you have to sell it for 500,000, and that's gonna get, it's not ADA compatible. There's only one bathroom downstairs. There's no elevator to get upstairs. Even if the Legion took it over, you'd have to do a lot of remodeling to fit your needs. If I got 250,000 for that building, I'd be happy with that.
Or you'd have to put everything on the ground level.
Well, I know, but you do a lot of remodeling.
Let's say you put the police department there, you could make the police department on one
Even if
thing
you
and
got
Yeah,
300,000, that's a drop in the bucket. I mean, 4 million covers it.
I think we can talk about whether it's worth $50 or $50 million, but until we're even there, I think it's all hypothetical because we can get it appraised tomorrow and spend $1,000 to have it
Well, I don't think
appraised.
we have to do that. I mean,
But
we
until
talked
we have
about
it for sale,
350.
until you have a buyer, I'm giving you a number to try to be very conservative to say, I think I would feel comfortable telling the council we could get $250,000 for it. If we get 500,000, it's a bonus. We doubled our money.
And we pay for part of the new fire
It-
station.
that-
Wouldn't it be nice, I guess, wouldn't it be nice to know that? And, or you leave the rescue squad there and you move the police in there, and then you don't need quite such a big
Well, first of all, one of the reasons that we're building this new facility is for our rescue squad. Because right now, we have people coming in from outside of our territory that are sleeping in recliners
asleep.
and don't have a shower.
Okay,
Well,
You
maybe
can
we
put
just
one
build a
in.
rescue squad building.
you can put one in for less than
That
4 million, I'll
doesn't
bet.
fix our needs as far as buying apparatus and fitness.
Well, I understand, but I mean, Kiwanee, they're separate,
Right.
separate.
Right. Right.
Could you start out with that and then add on a fire station?
So anyway,
I guess that was my idea, to build a smaller fire
Just-
station.
just to bring it
Yeah.
back in, and I want to talk to this a little bit. I think we have a fantastic plan with our road infrastructure work. The monies we've been spending every single year in the city, I think has done justice, working with the utilities and being on the same page. and the monies that they're putting forth and we're working and what they have and what we can do, that we're simultaneously doing jobs and knocking them out little by little as best we can. The thing that we have to look at is every year we're putting this, and I'm not saying we need to shut it off, but the mayor has spent a lot of time in my office in the last 5 to 7 days talking about, and he's not saying we need to shut it off either, but we are, and I know Wayne brought it up this morning, Lee brings it up religiously. We need to continue to put money into our roads and our utility. It is, everybody drives on them every day, okay? But in the meantime, we're taking our other infrastructure, our public facilities, and we haven't stuck a dollar into them. I'm not sure since when. It's always the patch emergency work that's getting done to our other, everything, because everybody drives down Fremont Street, everybody drives down Division Street, everybody drives on 4th Street. Not everybody needs the fire department. Not everybody uses Legion Hall. Not everybody goes to Knutson Hall. Our infrastructure, Scott Meverden brought it up earlier in this meeting. You know, our HVAC, heating and cooling system in City Hall has been neglected for 15 plus years. So
then you're gonna borrow that to cover that?
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, you know, and to the mayor is, nobody wants to shut off doing road and utility projects. But at the end of the day, we can't continue to borrow $8 million every 3 years either. And we can't ignore infrastructure, which is our public buildings.
Let me ask you a question, going back to public works. All your street projects is Sunset, right?
Yep.
We put off Sunset, we keep putting it off year after year after
Mm-hmm.
year. So what happens if we put that off and take that money then and put it towards the rest of this?
We continue to do expensive maintenance to Sunset to make it travelable.
Well, what are we doing? I haven't really seen a lot on Sunset.
Because of where it is in our capital outlay, we've been filling potholes to make it that you can travel down it.
But the traffic isn't as heavy on there now as it used to be when the highway was doing full.
That is correct.
So does this include curb and gutter and everything on Sunset?
Yes. That's complete project.
Which is curb.
Estimated complete project. Now, like the fire department, all of this work has to go out to bid, right? So we're using the best estimates, off of the last bid numbers that we received to try to come up with this number. No different than working with Bayland Builders to say, this is the last time you put this out for bid. You deal with this every single day. Do you feel comfortable with this number? You know, our infrastructure, because of where bids prices are coming in, is going to probably start to get smaller and smaller because of the price going up and up.
And is Bayland our only option then? I mean, Bayland do the plans and everything?
Bayland has a set of plans drawn, okay? If we decide that we're gonna go with a different design builder, we would go back to start over from scratch. And at the end of the day, we don't have anything vested dollar-wise with Bayland, a lot of time, right? But whether it's Bayland or whether it's Tom and Jerry Builders, it's still design and has to go out to bid. So all they're gonna do is give us their estimate. They still have to put it out to bid.
So it's $1 million some dollars to do the heating, right? Say 1.5 million, 5 minutes. Could we make the fire station build that and then add a city hall and police department onto this other building for say $3 million? Because city hall, what is it? Conference here, a couple offices. It's not a whole lot. Police station, 2 offices, secure room for evidence and whatnot.
The whole library. That's where it.
Can't we put that in the old fire station, make that on 1 floor, and then use that as a...
Remember, the fire department is not ADA
Put it on
compatible.
1 floor.
It needs windows, it needs tuck pointing, it needs a rough, you know, we're not looking to, I don't think, unless this council tells me different, we're not looking to build a new fire department to open up space because the fire department we currently have is in such good condition. Let's see what department we can move over there. I don't think that's our goal.
Well, if you wanna get 250 for it, you might wanna make it solid.
Gotta get custom made to fit in the garage doors at the station, and then you still don't have the room. I mean, eventually it's gonna be that you're gonna have a 6-inch aisle in between for the people to get in and out of the place just to get on the truck. I mean, the money alone that they spent on these last, the aerial in the last 610, because it had to be custom made to fit into the station. I mean, you're spending that kind of money on that because you got no choice. And you can't cut down on days on a fire station. The equipment you got for a reason.
Well, I'm not saying for the fire department, I'm saying if we didn't move.
Wait. You got a bay in there that we don't even have equipment for, which could be, and you also have a wash bay, which could be combined with the 2 bays into one. So you're building it for stuff you don't even have, which I like future and everything. But you could combine the wash bay with the one to save the 25-foot span or whatever that is.
So then whether the ambulance, you get the wash bay ambulance.
No, this is that other end. There was actually a wash bay and an empty bay that says future pickup truck and boat, which we don't have. So I'm just saying.
We don't have the room for
Well, we don't have money. If I had money, we could do this. We have no money. We're poor. We don't have a lot of people building new houses in town. We don't have a lot of lots for sale. We're not like Luxembourg building an 80-lot subdivision plus apartments. We don't have that here. We're landlocked. We're landlocked.
How much are the townships gonna pay for this?
It would if the city would decide to build a fire station, there is not in their contract a dollar amount. It would open up our contracts to have discussions with them.
Because, Pierce has 2 pieces of equipment that we house.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
so I would think that they would be obligated to pay something. Equipment for heating and electric.
There's not in our new contracts, it opens up our contract to have this conversation.
There's no guarantees.
There isn't, because when we were putting our contracts together, are we building a $3 million fire station? Are we building a $7 million police and fire? Are we, it's really hard to say like, well, let's build this in there. Really, there's a clause to say it opens the contract back up.
Just through some of the conversations that we had because we had quarterly township meetings, and the subject was brought up to them because they're well aware that we are looking for a new facility. And 2 of the townships, and I'm going to say Lincoln and Pierce, were very open to the idea and understanding that, hey, we're getting the coverage, they're the service that we provide, and they were very open to the idea of looking to assist with financing it. I'm not saying that, but
having the conversation.
But I mean, they were.
Well, that's good news.
Their town leadership was very open to it.
I mean, it worked out for we bought the last pumper.
Right.
And had to be paying half. I mean, that was a good.
Right.
That worked out for us.
Can we look at the 2.8 that we have sitting and make a resolution, do whatever, and utilize some of that money, even take $1 million out of there so that we're not borrowing as much or whatever. And then, if that's done, then we have a whole different dollar amount that we know we need to borrow because we would be utilizing that. And then you go out to bond, or then we take a vote on that or something so that wipes out.
You want to take $1 million and pay off debt, or you want to take $1 million and pay towards
Borrow less than $1 million, what you're saying, I think. Use $1 million.
Right. We discussed this a little bit earlier in the meeting too. I think Kevin brought it up, and without some sort of formal policy on what you want your minimum fund balance to be, I'm not really comfortable doing that, nor do I know even what a full year of the city's finances look like. So can you do it? Probably, but I'm not willing to say, yeah, go ahead.
I would feel more comfortable saying this is how much money, if that's what this council was looking at doing, I would feel more comfortable saying, instead of borrowing $3 million, we borrow 2, knowing that we have that in there. If we needed it for emergency.
Borrowing 4, you would borrow 3.
Or instead of borrowing 7, borrow 6, or, you know what I'm saying? Instead of,
Okay, I have one more question there. If we pass this and you go and borrow, this is gonna be part of our budget for next week, because we're gonna have the payments calculated. What kind of effect is this gonna have on the rest of our budget? That's the only question I got. If you're telling me nothing, then I'm okay with it, because there's gotta be an effect someplace along the line.
What's the
Where
interest rate?
are we gonna be
We
giving
don't
up
have that.
anything else that we desperately need?
Well, if we pass it
Are
on
we
to the
cutting
taxpayer.
services?
Well, it's gonna
If
be
we
passed
borrow
on.
seven.
Yeah.
It
So-
doesn't have to be either way.
What did you just say?
it has to be passed on to the
If it says
taxpayer.
it doesn't, then I'd like to.
If you don't borrow, it doesn't get passed on to the taxpayer.
Well,
If
if
you
we
borrow,
borrow,
it gets
But you
passed
can't-
on to the taxpayer, so how much we borrow affects everybody's levy. And the
So if we
only
borrow
thing
6
is-
million versus 7 million, it's going to affect it by, what did you say?
13 cents
13 cents a thousand.
per thousand.
Per thousand.
So what is this?
Because we haven't even looked at the rest of our budget yet. We haven't
No,
even-
and I thought that question may come up, but I mean, honestly, I'm not far enough into the budget to understand even what that impact would look like. I mean, and like we mentioned earlier, if you want to borrow $7 million, my recommendation is whatever those debt payments are, you put on the levy. And you fund it 100% out of the tax revenues. I'm not suggesting that you cut any services to pay for these things. I think it needs,
But my point is, what you're telling us the tax levy is going to go up is based on borrowing the 7 million.
yes, yeah,
And
that does
adding
not
it all
factor
to
in
the
the
tax
doesn't
levy.
factor
What
in.
Wayne's question is it's going up 89 cents on $7 million
Yep.
per $1,000. And then when we get into the budget, is it going up another 11
Well,
cents?
that's like, yeah.
Are we also going to be at $1?
Yeah.
That's your question, I think, right?
I
Until
don't
we
have
know
an
where the
answer.
mill rate is gonna, that's really hard to give you that number. I wish I could.
But yet you want us to give you the okay to go ahead with this.
Oh,
So, you
the
know,
chicken or the egg?
yeah, yeah. So we have conservative rate in this test.
I would want a lot of it. It wouldn't be able to do
It's a need. It's not a want, it's definitely a need, and I totally understand that. And I've been a proponent of that, it cost me an election because of that. But and Gus and I go back a long way. I spend a lot of time in that building, and I still spend a lot of time in it. It's something we definitely need, but I look at the other side of it too. I mean, if we could get by without borrowing 7 million, could we borrow 6 million? I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's still something.
It's still a lot of money. It's still
It's a lot of
$200 a year.
Well, if you were still working at the bank, we'd have a
Yeah,
real
yeah.
leg up on this thing because all that money that you could embezzle out of there.
We never, I'll tell you, we never had a chance to embezzle much anyway. Don't you have a good enough, that's what I thought.
Can't you
That'll
get
be,
us 3%
that'll be,
it's already on YouTube. It's on right now.
Some big thing?
Three viewers right now.
well, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna sit here all night or what are we gonna do?
What do you guys
Why don't you
want
give
from
them the
us?
recommendation? Jamie, do you want to give like the staff recommendation here?
So is this where we're at?
What are we recommending? And then this one.
So just tell them what the motion would be. They plug in the dollar amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we start with the capital improvement first?
Yeah, so I guess what we were hoping to end with when we got kind of past the discussion point was a recommendation from council to adopt the capital improvement plan, that's this document, with the changes that we were kind of discussing throughout the meeting. So one of those changes would be moving the fire trucks that are listed from 26 and 27 to 28 and 29, meaning no borrowing happening for them at this point. Putting a placeholder in administration for HVAC in the City Hall building, putting a placeholder in the cemetery for 2028 for roads, 2029 for blacktop for cemetery expansion, and then wastewater treatment fund to put the miscellaneous capital pump motor rehab, the $82,000 per year inflated by whatever the contract says, as a continuous line item in each year, like that it's not in there now.
What about the possibility of eliminating one of those squad?
That doesn't really
The
play into
capital.
this. This is just kind of purchases going forward.
Leave it out.
One question though, Gus, can we wait that long with 605? I guess if we're spending all this money, what's another 600,000 on this little thing? Can we wait, can we do 605 sooner? That thing's old as dirt.
I'm afraid the axles are flying.
Well, that's what I mean. If we're gonna spend 4 million, what's the heck is the difference if you spend 4.6 to get that truck replaced?
I don't know if you get it for 600,000.
Oh, that's not a pretty good number.
No, I'm thinking you're talking closer to 750 to 9.
Oh,
I just want to mention and circle back, Kevin, and I completely agree with you. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be taken care of. But I think that's one of those things is let's see where we can get some grant money and see if we can try to chew that off as
Chew it off of your 7 million or 6 million.
then go to 5 or go to 8.
so then can we leave it in for 26 or no?
It's a placeholder in there. I mean,
Keep it there.
because it's in there for 2026.
Right.
You know, if you feel comfortable putting it in 2025, it doesn't mean we have to buy it if it's
Right, I
in
think
25.
26.
I mean, we've been backing it out for
Since
10
I've been
years
here.
now.
Yeah.
And it's just, the reason we've been backing it out is just because of the facility to put it in.
Well, if that truck's 700, something like, then that pump is gonna be over a million.
You're gonna be a 1.2, 1.5, and
By
2
that
years,
time.
and 2 years away from getting it delivered.
Right.
That's another thing to keep in mind. If ordering a Pierce fire truck today, you're probably 2 years plus to take it delivered. If it's
We've
Pierce.
been fortunate in that we've done it.
Right.
Yep.
So you're looking
I
at a
think that's
motion
across
to
the board.
this.
You're just recommending that to council for the next meeting, so then Jamie has the time to go back through it, make the changes we've discussed here tonight, push things around, and put that in front
I'll
of you.
make that motion, but I want 605 at 750 and I want 5 at 1.5.
And what about the years?
I like the years where they are. That's
So-
750 and 1.5.
yeah, I mean, if it's gonna
Okay.
cost 750, let's put 750 instead of 600. That's under 50.
But taking them out of 26 and 27?
No,
Nope.
leave them right where they are.
Okay, so we would be changing the dollar amounts for the 2026 and 2027 fire trucks from what they are to 750,000 and 1.5 million. We would be adding a placeholder for the HVAC at City Hall. We would be adding placeholders for the cemetery, 2028 for the roads, 2029 for the blacktop, and then making the changes as discussed for the wastewater treatment facility, and then adding a line placeholder for the American Legion. Sorry, I forgot about that one.
That's all I'm
What was the cemetery? Oh, expanding.
expanding it, yeah.
That's a self-funding.
Yeah.
Not the expansion.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
it's on
it's
the
on
lot, it's on the
lots.
lot, pay for the expansion.
Okay, do I have it?
That's why it's self-funded.
So that motion was made by Kevin.
How much? You know about it, Kevin?
Not that,
We're not on that
not-
part.
Not
Just
that- we're not
approving
there
this
yet.
future
I'll
plan.
Second by.
Changes to make
This
it
goes
amounts
to the
more.
park, so.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll get a cleaned up document for council.
So regardless, regardless, it's going to affect the taxpayers and their.
No, I'm
No,
not
no,
approving
no,
that.
I'm just saying, no, if this comes into play with how much you want to borrow, and as Wayne said, I'm all for the fire department too, but as he said, if we're borrowing and the people that didn't want the fire department are now gonna have their taxes raised because of it, just throwing it out there.
But the only thing is with buying squad cars, maybe there's people that don't like the cops and why are they buying squad cars? I mean, you gotta look at
Yeah,
the
but
whole
one day
picture.
they want to-
No one's out, not everybody's gonna be happy.
No, I agree.
Right, and right now you're just
We're just
approving
the plan.
recommending approval of this plan. This is not the 10 Commandments, it's the plan.
council.
Yep, you're recommending approval to the council.
And everybody that's watching this, know about it. They won't because, live stream.
Well, you'd be
We're
surprised.
live
how
streaming
many
right
people
now.
do.
We're live streaming right
And one
now.
thing about YouTube is you can see it today and you can see it by 5 o'clock tomorrow and you can see how many people have watched it.
That's the camera too.
Yeah.
So it's-
I have a motion by Kevin and a second by Amy, right?
I would also request that we have some specific tax implications on 3 million, 5 million, 7 million, 10 million.
We just discussed.
You want some in writing? So you can
In
see
writing
for council so you can review it.
But this is just the capital improvement plan.
Right.
Yeah, we're just the plan.
Are you talking about on the capital borrowing or are you talking?
Borrow.
The borrowing?
Okay.
We'll get there.
Let's get to that.
Can we finish this motion?
So the motion we have is just for the capital plan, and the placeholders and everything changes.
Yep.
to what is-
Correct, just recommending approval.
And we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that? I suspect we'll take it in the phone. Yes.
Dashlet,
Yes.
Ortlieb,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Wayne Schmidt, Swedberg,
Yes.
Meverden,
Yes.
Kevin Schmidt.
Yes.
Okay, now the second motion.
Okay, the second motion we're thinking is to, and the intention would be that we're doing this in the finance personnel meeting and then convening a special council meeting following so that we have some direction on what to go to our financial advisor for. So second motion should be to direct staff to proceed with borrowing X million for the purpose of 2025 to 2027 capital projects as outlined in the capital improvement plan, with the final plan being approved at the next regular city council meeting. Keep in mind that if you say you want to borrow 3 or 4 or 7 or $0 million, you do now have far more than that built into 2025, 2026, and 2027.
So that being said, if we're going out 25, 26, and 27, those freight trips are covered then.
Because you're not going to borrow enough money to pay for them.
Because they're,
I
because
understand this is only a template.
it is a template.
Unless you have the money.
That is, so
When you read your motion, you said that we need to borrow whatever, 25, 26, and 27. I was wondering why you went out to 26 and 27.
Because the intention is that we are doing a borrowing right now for 3 years worth of projects.
Okay.
But you now put in a lot more money into those years with projects. Right.
But your projects can change,
The
right?
projects can change. Yep.
I
So
mean, if all of a
whatever
sudden-
you borrow, all of these
Yeah,
things
if all of a
will not
sudden the
happen.
HVAC goes down here, you got a problem with it. So
Right.
take care of it.
correct.
Okay.
And Balaji said we could go up to 7 or
7 was the discussion that we had.
7's the highest you recommend.
Our debt capacity as of the end of 2024 should be about $10.7 million.
The max we could borrow. No, the
That
max we could
If
handle.
we borrowed $10,700,000, we'd be at 100% of our debt capacity.
Do you remember
Not
the
recommend
chart that Brian had in the audit? That,
Steve may have it.
but that's where she's getting this from, is that chart in the audit.
Our debt capacity is 16 million, we could borrow 10 million.
It is not a recommendation to get to 100% of our debt
Right.
capacity.
That's what it is.
To answer
Right.
Amy's question,
That is the answer to our
Steve is
question.
correct. That answers Amy's question.
But that's, staff is recommending to go with
That is
the
not.
7 as your financial advisor advised.
So if we want to break down, you could give us tax increase by 3, 6, and 7
It's-
million
13 cents per million.
for the meeting. If Scott wants it in writing, you can have something for
council.
I mean, how detailed do you want it? Do you want us to just type up 13 cents per million?
We're asking us to make a decision now. Or could we have to?
What our financial advisor advised us, that worst case scenario, if we borrowed $7 million, it would be 89 cents per $1,000 of equalized value of a property.
So we're even rounding at the 13 cents. So the 13 cents is probably a little bit high, but maybe it's 12 and a quarter.
And yes, he can recommend anything he wants. He's not sitting in this chair.
He doesn't have to pay back the money.
And we
That's
would
right.
have loved for him to be available to
But
be
he's
here
in
tonight,
Africa.
but he is in Africa.
And yes, you saved it going to the bond market, and he's gonna save what, $40,000 each, $20,000 each time you go.
Approximately $20,000 to the bond
Yeah,
market. Now,
compared to 4 million, that's a drop in the bucket, okay? I know you wanna do it all now, save that money. I'm not ready to make that decision as to what I really wanna do. Do I wanna really borrow 7 million? I don't think so. 4 million, maybe because we need to, just to meet our needs, and then we can switch it around within that. I'm not ready to go to $7 million.
If
And
we
to authorize you to do that.
if we go to 7 million and you go back to Belangi and say, hey, they've recommended 7 million. Correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't lock us into going to that 7 million. It gives us the rates. It gives us this is what your payment's going to look like. It gives Jamie the numbers.
I mean,
Correct.
He can go to
And-
the bond market. I mean, it doesn't mean we have to sign the papers at the end of the day.
We might have to pay the bill for going to the bond market.
But you're gonna have to build to go to the bond market. I mean, at that point now, they have time vested.
It's not locking us into like, hey, you're going to tell staff to do this tonight, and tomorrow she's going to call Belangi and we're locked into 7 million. It's going to start the process of where does this look from here?
Well, when is Belangi back?
I don't know, he's gone for 2 weeks or something, but he's expecting an email from us tomorrow.
Gus, if we got funding for the fire station, are we talking a year to build this station? Did we ever talk about time frame? From start to finish? Anybody ever talk
They
about
thought it could be within a calendar year.
within a calendar year?
That would be everything that we talked about was the plan.
Fell in
I don't think
the
we
line.
had a plan yet to say that we could build it.
No, I'm just the construction of the
Right.
facility.
This is not a shovel-ready project.
No.
Right.
No, but you gotta think, okay, I got a year, that's gonna take the building.
It's gonna take a year, but there's gonna be some time front-end loaded to say, where is this gonna be built, right? Reopen up the plans. It has to go out to bid. Bids have to come back. When do we start them? Now, is it winter? Is it, pouring concrete in January adds a big expense to the project. So
The longer we wait, the more the price goes up. It could be 5 million. I think we should just do the 7 million and be done with it.
So the
can
property
always-
values in the city of Algoma went up 50%-ish. Everybody's taxes have already gone up. There's not one but 2 failed referendums, and I want the fire department, I do. But the public has already spoken, and I think there's gotta be a better way to do it. If you're putting me on the spot here right now, as a taxpayer and a representative of the taxpayers, I'm not comfortable going up any more than what we would typically do every 3 years just to fix the infrastructure, which is about $3.5 million, not 7. That's my personal opinion. You all have your own. It's just not the right way to do it. That's my opinion. And I feel like it's the right way. We all have a vote. I'm just letting you know where I stand. That's where my head's at. That's a lot of money. And taxes are going to go up. Doesn't matter if we go into debt 1 million or 3 million or 5 million or 7 million, they're going to go up dramatically. And that's not even taking into consideration what's going to happen with county and WTC and everything else. We don't know that yet.
I guess to go from 6, we might as well do 7. So you're saying either we do 3 or we do 7? Not if you want to do 3?
I'm gonna do what was,
I'm not.
what we've been doing.
I could be talking to 7.
3.5, is that what you want? 3.5.
We want to do 3.5.
We can always go back in the bond market and resell some bonds. It just costs us a little bit of money to do it, but the amount of money that we pay is small in comparison to what we borrow.
If you're gonna do, and I just wanna ask this question, if you're gonna do $3 million, what are we gonna do with it?
That's another question.
That's your list.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
your
your
wish list.
your normal
You're
list.
putting it into the fire station, you're putting it in the infrastructure. That we haven't decided yet.
I'm just putting it out there.
The absolute maximum, I mean, and if we're, the absolute maximum would be maybe 4.5 to 5. We're at 4.4 less the station, and you took the 1.5 million, which we just also found out for those two pieces of apparatus are undervalued. That'd leave us at 2.9. Could we do $2 million and make it 4.9, make it 5 million? Is that enough to go to get your grants for the fire station? I mean, it's gotta happen.
Gives us a placeholder. I can't guarantee it because it's a grant, but it gives us a placeholder.
Exactly. There's too much, there's too many unknowns. Especially if everything else that's going on in the world right now. I think the taxes have already gone up.
But you need plans and everything to get grants, right? You need to know what lot.
Yep,
is
they have
around.
to be shovel ready.
Maybe Sunset isn't the answer. Maybe there's another lot. We don't know. You need to have a location and a whole set of design specs.
I'm not comfortable going up to that 72% capacity when we're currently in the
50%.
some 50.
Or 41.
Everybody, everyone, reports.
You have the capacity. You know, and these are things that you know, and I understand that you're not comfortable with it. Costs continue to go up. There's always, you know, there are grant alternatives once we have to establish. Sure, it's additional monies on the levy, but again, and I go through it all the time. It's value. It's not getting cheaper. It is a definite need. It costs us in the back end as far as apparatus. There's a lot of residual things that if we're going to assess like too many variables, then you can add 1,000 more variables to it. The difference between $5.5 million borrowing or $7 million borrowing is about $20 per. Right, the 200,000. I mean, I don't want to say it's not that much, but relatively compared to the longevity of the building that is going to be an investment into, the timing of it, the financial state of the city. I'm all in favor of going to the full 7 million.
And you're not gonna be able to spend it within their time frame. Because you just can't do it. By the time we do all those things and get the station underway, you don't have to pay for it all for the following year until 2026. So I don't know why they have to go so high, Casey, for something for money we're not going to spend. And my concern is that once you have money, you tend to spend money. I don't want to do that. So you will, I understand where you're coming from. I agree with Scott. I think 5 million is top.
We have to do it tonight. Can't wait to.
That's what I'm saying. They're saying we got to do it tonight because they got to go back to the bond guy.
Is there gonna, in 2 weeks, is there gonna be that big of a difference? I don't know. I guess I'm not involved with bonds. I don't know.
We can push it back 2 weeks.
I mean, don't you think maybe we should?
The problem is in 2 weeks, the problem doesn't go away.
Well, no, I understand that.
It just prolongs it.
But you might get some input from some of the constituents too.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 weeks.
What if you don't? What if you don't get
Then
called?
you borrow 5 million.
Or 7, depends on how everybody
I'm
votes.
just thinking, nobody calls me and it's my cell phone.
How many people know about it right now?
How many people on YouTube right now?
Well, now, but how many people knew about it before tonight's meeting? When you were on the fire station?
No,
Not the central fire station. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about borrowing $7 million. That's what I'm asking. How many people knew about it prior to tonight?
everybody in this room, that's it.
Yeah, but almost everything that we do, how many people know about it before anything is done. It's a matter of what's paid attention to. And it's still, you're still in that chair to make a decision. I get the discomfort if you want to mind, your constituents for it, but, I respect that.
Well,
But it's gonna sway you that,
you're here to make a decision, but you also have to look at the financial end of it too. For everybody. Not just for you.
I'm not
Maybe,
just
I don't
looking
know,
at me.
but I'm looking at the entire community. And maybe it's something, you look at everything else keeps going up. How much can people absorb? If you wanna borrow 7 million, fine, but give me 2 weeks to make that decision. Why do I have to make it tonight?
It might be of interest, something this big, people only ask the constituents. What they want. They really want to make sure that they get.
Maybe put it on Facebook page too.
yeah, well,
We're doing that right now, so.
Well, this is
I know what I'm
you,
getting
you
at.
could put it on our city Facebook page, so the community that has.
I don't think.
I would not recommend that. Uh-huh. And that all has to be kept documented, that kind of stuff. But if you want to put it on your Facebook page and they comment on your, no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
If you want to put it on your Facebook page and they comment on your Facebook page or your groups, that's
It's a
fine.
little different than if they comment on the cities.
Well, how do you get that stuff to the people? How do you get the information?
They will know. I don't know. Somebody's
no way of
watching
seeing.
and somebody will tell somebody and they will tell somebody.
It's out there already. I was cornered by a guy yesterday that said, I'm crazy if I'm gonna build a fire station. So it's out there.
Is build a fire station or the cost of it?
Build a fire station.
He's totally against that.
We said
No,
no.
no, he's not totally against fire stations. He's against the cost of the fire station.
The rumor is out there.
Okay,
He's against the fire station.
If you're gonna hold off on for 2 weeks till the council meeting, is there any additional information you want us to prepare? That'll take 2 seconds.
13 cents per $1,000 valuation.
We said it and it's in.
But is there
Right.
something
You know,
else,
a
like,
formal I mean, like,
how do you,
City
Something
header.
I can go into the meeting minutes, so it's not.
okay, so put it
I voted for the fire station, yes, both times, sat up on the stage with multiple people and served on that. I'm all for it, but it failed twice. I'm not here just to represent the people that said yes and think the same ones I do. We have to think about the people that don't. Plus, I'm being fiscally responsible with everything, Casey.
Are
just
you
like-
though? Are you, I mean, it's a matter of, the idea of not spending money doesn't make you fiscally responsible. That on itself isn't fiscal responsibility, right? Doing the things now, anticipating needs in the future, leads to fiscal responsibility. I think there's a definite difference between just not spending money and being fiscally responsible. I mean, if it's the 2 weeks that you all need, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, however that interferes, what are you gonna do?
We'll figure it out.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with it. I have a doubt that anybody's mind is going to change off of what their original inclination is here. But if the majority wants, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think you should wait, because first I didn't want it, now you could talk me into it, so.
Okay. So table till council.
Do you need a motion to extend this for 2 weeks or how do you want to?
Make a motion.
I guess I'd make a motion to table it to council because otherwise technically it should come back to a finance meeting. So you would be pushing it to council without any action on it.
So moved.
The motion though is to go directly to council with it,
Well,
not to go back to,
go back to finance next month.
you're making a motion to go to finance, well, that's 30 days away.
Oh, no, you said council, we gotta do council.
The motion we're asking is to, if we're gonna push it off, it's gonna be to push it off to council, which would be September 3rd.
That's me.
Is everybody gonna be at that meeting September 3rd? Is there anybody that knows that they won't be here?
That's one you said.
No, that's the 19th. So September 3rd would be the day after Labor Day. I'm just asking because we push it off and all of a sudden 3 people can't make it, or 2 people, or, yeah, okay.
I think we have a second. John B? I'm sorry.
Motion by Kevin, second by John.
To move this item to council on 9/3. No action taken today.
Roll call.
Okay, roll call.
Sure. Swedberg,
Yes.
Kevin Schmidt,
Yes.
Dashlet,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Meverden,
Yes.
Wayne Schmidt,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Ortlieb.
Can I just ask
All right.
about
Yep.
that special?
Any agenda items for the next meeting?
Mayor, can I just ask one question?
Yes.
I sent out an email a couple weeks ago about a potential budget meeting on September 19th. I heard from most of you. I did not hear from Casey, and I did not hear from Kevin.
Usually so good at keeping up on these things.
I emailed back because I put it in my phone.
Oh, I didn't get the email. Let's do that.
What time?
5 o'clock is a Thursday, 2 days after our finance personnel meeting. Okay, so plan on that. We should have everybody, or darn near everybody. Okay, thank you.
Our next meeting date will be September 17th. And I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Somebody make second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
If I could break for the bathroom.
Yeah, I went right there.
If you heard.
All of it.
7, 8, 9 million.
Oh, must be bigger.
But when you get earmarked 19 million for a pier, it's hard to go back to the wishing well.
I mean, just been working on it day and night.
September 19th, Thursday. 5.
All right. Go ahead. Yep.
We'll call to order the special common council meeting on Tuesday, August 20th.
7:21.
Roll call, please.
1 second. Johnson,
Here.
Kevin Schmidt,
Yeah.
Ortlieb,
He's here.
Dashlet, Meverden, Dorr, Swedberg, Wayne Schmidt,
Confirm the meeting in compliance with the open meeting law.
yes.
I would be looking for approval also changes to the order of the agenda. By Mitch, second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And new business, Parks and Rec batting cages at Ferry Field.
Sure. So after a lot of discussion with Jeff Denise and a couple different places and ideas of where to put it, first idea was kind of on Division Street, and we kind of shut that down right away because of traffic concerns and visibility. Me and Jeff met then and moved it so it was running parallel with Steel Street. We discussed it yesterday at the Park and Recs meeting, and what we recommended is that it would be okay if we put it, so here's Perry Field. So say this is the old ice skating rink, basically go 15 feet off the property line roughly, and then run it north and south instead of east and west like was shown in that drawing. Yeah. So this tree is not there, so basically it runs here. It'd be a little, the front would be, basically the front of this house, and it would extend, it was 80 feet was the whole slab, and it'd be 16 feet wide, and it would run north and south.
So you're building it right next to that fence house?
Yeah.
He's got a fence there though.
There's a fence,
there.
it's gonna be
It's
off.
off the property line, it wouldn't infringe on his property.
And that tree isn't there anymore either.
No.
Well, I'm worried about the noise with all the kids in the batting cages and how that affects his quality of life. Do we have to be so close?
We looked at other options, me and Jeff looked today, because we talked with the park team about where we put it inside the park. And with actually going out and measuring, there really isn't a good place to put it in the park. That would be the best spot for it, but then we even said if we have to put out there, it's probably better than they wanted as close to their dug as they could get. You look even like extending off, like even if we had to remove, say, 2 trees on next to Steel Street and put it by like where the bleachers are, like kind of where the old one is in the picture, it's not wide enough. We move that fence in a foot, and it's not long enough because there's only 60 feet between the light poles, the whole stretch there. And we also put a gate there, so now that, and actually we measured on the first baseline with the discussion of changing dugouts, and we were not a fan to begin with. But if you actually measure it, there's almost more room on off of Steel Street than there is off of Division.
How far back from Steel is the road there?
It would be, I didn't measure it, it's about even at the front of the house there, so I'm gonna say, was it like 20 feet, 25 feet?
Is this on a slab?
It would be on a slab. We have no financial responsibility in this whatsoever, it's all fundraising money that just, fundraising money that the baseball.
There's no place else on Perry Field that we can place this.
To make it convenient in a spot that's away
Well,
from the
that's good.
playground.
Yeah, I mean, the field is convenient to everybody and there's parking around it. And, I understand the football team is gonna be leaving.
We looked into different options.
So we did look at that underneath the goalpost on Division Street. But then that would change, then the pitchers or the batters warming up would have to walk past the opposing team's bench. So we thought, well, maybe they could swap, and that was a no as well, and we weren't even sure, because was that even long enough?
It wasn't necessarily wide enough.
Wide enough.
So when we, I guess, to answer your question, we checked different places in the park that would make sense. And I don't think we want it right next to the playground, because what's gonna happen is it's more apt to be tampered with, in my opinion, not saying it would, but we also want right next to the playground, where Wyatt decided to put across the street.
So if you play a game and the pitcher wants to warm up, he's going across the street.
Yeah, across the street.
It's four stop right now. So it's a little
But
bit
still,
of-
they don't honor that, they're gonna.
And I did also tell Jeff that, by putting it across the street, you're gonna have to make sure that it requires use the crosswalk and not just cross.
When they want it, right?
So this is fully funded, that's not right, everything, everything for the location. That's level, not for those people.
You can't move it to the west. I know you can't have it right on the street, but you could put it in the middle. So they're not right next to the house. This would be.
Well, then you're blocking traffic
Away
and
from
stuff.
grade school.
No, not on the corner. You don't have to go all the way to the corner, but yeah, right in there.
Well, then you're wasting a whole bunch of space in Middle Park that potentially at some point could be used for something.
And the football team.
Because you're putting that cement slab down, so now you're
It's not
moving the
something
whole
you-
concept of what a park is. Now you've got more.
I mean, you could put it right in the middle of it if you really wanted, but then you're wasting the rest of the real estate in there for what may come down the line, like trees or whatever you want to do.
It'll do the football, still practice there, or?
They do,
For now.
Grade school.
for now, if the high school ever moves, Mr. Bettle said they'd probably move and practice on Perry Field itself. But that's if they move it.
If you're worried about the noise down, this would be a big assumption on my part, but that baseball game is probably noisier than that. Well, but that game happens 3 hours for twice a week. This is, batting cages could go on till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, every single night.
It's
People practicing, getting ready.
The equipment is going to be locked down.
There's no light on in there, John, so there's not a game, if once a game starts, the only thing that would be happening there is maybe a pitcher warming up.
They're not gonna have batting practice in Middle.
Yeah.
That'd be a problem. They're gonna have batting practice probably between 3 and 5 when they have the normal practice.
And the only batters are going to be the team.
Gwynns would probably, I'm sure the Gwynns would utilize it, high school teams would utilize it. Maybe the point.
Just go home.
So it's not open to the public to come up there and.
I don't think, no, because there's gonna be no equipment there for people to use. So they lock that. If someone's
I
wondering
guess I
about
understand
baseball.
better now. I thought it had pitching machines or something.
No,
Not yet.
no, this wouldn't be a public facility. It'd be for games that were going on.
They added an extra, I wanna say it was like 10 feet to put a shed on one end of it so that they could lock up their pitching machines.
Have you talked to the people in our house?
Have not.
Maybe we should do that. I mean, if what you're saying is true, it's not gonna be a nuisance, that's fine, but I think that at least we'll warn you and see what they say. Well, yeah, but you don't anticipate.
It's like if I were complaining on St. Mary's for Children, right? I moved into a studio, right? Like there's certain consequences of where you are in the time of it. I understand, I appreciate your concern for it, but I think that like you're adjacent to two parks, used to be a skating rink that had all manner of kids probably making noise.
Yeah.
Actually, your place was noisier with that rooster. Than any of the kids in the playground.
Well, I guess did Josh and
No
Mom.
one in the neighborhood complained.
Guys went to pass that chicken wings.
Yeah, we wouldn't have had that rooster.
It was actually prior to. I make a motion to accept the replacement, to approve the replacement that's been discussed.
I'll second.
Motion by Casey, second by Amy. Do you still have to get buy-in from baseball?
No, I talked to Jeff
You talked to him
today.
and everything's good?
He said it's good. If they end up coming with a different location or a smaller cage and they could put in the park in the meantime, he'll come back to the park.
Motion and second. Just all in favor? Opposed? Okay. We had no action on the other, do we still need a motion?
That's it. No, there's no action to be taken on B.
Okay. Any items for the next meeting? Motion by Lee, second by Scott. Favor?
7:32.
Thank you.
There we go.